You might be drinking alcohol right now, or maybe you're about to. Beer, wine, whatever. You probably just drink it and move on with your day. But here's the crazy part. Drinking alcohol might be one of the oldest things our ancestors ever did. It's older than writing, older than farming, and the weirdest part? It might even be older than humans. Our story with alcohol doesn't begin with ancient Egyptians making beer. It may have started millions of years earlier, with a piece of rotten fruit. Imagine you're a small primate living in Africa millions of years ago. You're hungry. You find some fruit on the ground. But this isn't fresh fruit. It's been sitting there for a while. It's soft, it's sweet, and something else is happening inside it. Fermentation. Yeast naturally feeds on the sugar in fruit and produces alcohol. So that piece of fruit might contain a tiny amount of ethanol. You eat it. Nothing crazy happens. Maybe you feel a little different. And then you find another piece, and you eat that too. Now, you probably weren't thinking, wow, this is an excellent vintage. You were just eating. But scientists have suggested that our primate ancestors may have been naturally attracted to the smell and taste of fermented fruit. This idea is known as the drunken monkey hypothesis. The basic idea is simple. If you're an animal looking for food, finding fruit that smells strongly of fermentation could actually help you locate ripe, energy-rich fruit. So our relationship with alcohol may have started completely by accident. But eventually, humans figured out something much crazier. Instead of waiting for fruit to ferment, we could make alcohol on purpose. And this is where things get interesting. Around 13,000 years ago, a group of hunter-gatherers called the Natufians lived in the region that is now Israel. They weren't farmers yet. They hunted, they gathered wild plants, and they collected wild grains. But archaeologists found something inside a cave called Rakafet Cave, stone mortars. And inside those mortars were traces suggesting that people had processed grains in a way consistent with making a fermented drink. In other words, these people may have been brewing beer thousands of years before agriculture became common. Think about that. The traditional story is usually humans invented farming, then settled down, then built villages, then started making alcohol. But what if alcohol was part of the reason people wanted to gather together in the first place? And this brings us to one of the biggest archaeological mysteries ever discovered: Göbekli Tepe. Around 11,000 years ago, humans built enormous stone structures in what is now Turkey. We're talking about massive stone pillars, some weighing several tons, and these weren't simple houses. They were carefully designed structures covered with carvings of animals. The people who built them were still hunter-gatherers. They didn't have modern machines, they didn't have cities, and yet somehow they organized huge groups of people to build these massive monuments. Why? Well, archaeologists have found large stone containers at the site that may have been used to process or hold fermented beverages. Some researchers have suggested that feasting and drinking could have played a role in these huge gatherings. And if that's true, alcohol wasn't just something people drank alone. It may have helped bring people together. And this leads to an even crazier idea. Some researchers have suggested that the desire for fermented drinks may have helped encourage people to grow grains and settle down. Not everyone agrees with this, but the idea is fascinating. Because maybe the story wasn't, we invented farming, then invented beer. Maybe in some places the story was partly, we really like beer, so let's grow more grain. And eventually, humans got very good at it. Around 9,000 years ago, people in ancient China were already making complicated fermented drinks. At the site of Jiahu, archaeologists found pottery containing chemical traces consistent with a fermented drink made from ingredients including rice, honey, and fruit. So humans weren't just throwing random stuff into a pot anymore. They were experimenting, mixing ingredients, figuring out what worked. Basically, ancient humans were becoming alcohol scientists. And then came ancient Egypt. By this point, beer wasn't some strange experiment anymore. It was everywhere. Beer was part of daily life. Workers received beer as part of their food and compensation. It provided calories. It was used in religious ceremonies. And it was even used in medicine. So imagine living in ancient Egypt. You wake up, you work all day, you get food and beer. You go to a religious ceremony, there's beer, you get sick, there's a chance someone gives you some weird herbal beer. At this point, beer wasn't just a drink. It was basically doing everything. And there was another reason beer was useful. Clean drinking water wasn't always easy to guarantee. The brewing process involved heating and fermentation, which could make beer a safer option than untreated water in some circumstances. Plus, beer contained calories and nutrients. So for ancient workers, it wasn't necessarily just about getting drunk. It could actually be food, which makes the history of alcohol even stranger, because what started as naturally fermented fruit eventually became food, medicine, a social activity, a religious offering, and even a form of payment. And when you put the whole story together, It's pretty insane. Millions of years ago, our primate ancestors may have been attracted to naturally fermented fruit. Around 13,000 years ago, humans were already making fermented drinks. Thousands of years later, people were gathering in huge groups where drinking and feasting may have been part of the experience. Then humans developed more complex recipes, and eventually, entire civilizations built cultures around alcohol. So the next time you see someone drinking a beer, remember, they're participating in a tradition that goes back thousands of years. We didn't invent fermentation. Nature was doing it long before us. We just figured out how to control it. The ingredients changed, the bottles changed, the cups got fancier, but the basic idea stayed the same. Take something sweet, let tiny organisms do their thing, and somehow, humans decided this was worth repeating for thousands of years. And honestly, whoever tried fermented fruit for the first time probably had absolutely no idea they had just started one of humanity's longest relationships. They just wanted a snack.